Welcome to Chess Beginners 101. In this video, we'll cover everything you need to know to get started playing chess. Alright, let's start from the very beginning. There are 8 squares on each side of the chessboard, with a total of 64 squares. This row is called a file, and this row is called a rank. And finally, a diagonal. Every vertical line on the chessboard is called a file and is identified by a letter. And every horizontal row on the chessboard is a rank, numbered 1 to 8. Time to meet the squad. These chess pieces are about to have their 15 minutes of fame. Okay, I'm going to go over the properties and strengths of all the pieces, but first let me quickly introduce them. Okay, let's start with the most underrated pieces, but in my opinion, one of the best, maybe the best pieces. Let me introduce the pawns. Next up, we have the rooks, the knights, the bishops, the queens, last but certainly not least, the kings. Let's explore the special powers of each piece. Alright, we'll begin with the pawns. Pawns can only advance 1 square at a time and only forward, except for the first move where you can choose to advance 2 squares. Pawns can only capture on a diagonal forward, like this. While a single pawn may seem insignificant, a well-coordinated pawn structure can be a game changer. When they form a chain and shield each other, they become a powerful force. When a pawn reaches the opposite side of the board, it can be promoted to any piece except the king. Oh! I almost forgot one thing. En passant. En passant. It happens when a pawn moves 2 squares from its starting square and passes by an opponent's pawn. The opponent then has the option on their immediately following move to capture the pawn as if it had only moved 1 square, like this. As I said, pawns may seem weak at first, but they often decide the game. Never underestimate the pawns. Time to focus on the heavy hitters. Let's talk about the rooks. Rooks, they're the second most powerful pieces on the board. They move horizontally and vertically across the entire board, and they slice the board into pieces like a samurai sword. They can easily checkmate a king or control an entire file. They can move any number of squares along any open file, but only in a straight line. Sound the charge. It's time to analyze the knights. Knights are unpredictable and erratic, always keeping you on your toes, and it's the only piece that can jump over other pieces. And the knight moves 2 squares forward and 1 to the side, in an L shape. It attacks all of these squares. That's why the knight is such a dangerous piece. The knight is the ultimate multitasker, able to fork 2 pieces with ease. Next up are the bishops, the knight's counterparts in terms of value, but their moves are worlds apart. There's a bishop on a black square and one on a white square. Their movement is restricted to the diagonals. White and black are in a perfect partnership. Aim to preserve both pieces for as long as the position allows. Combined, they are a lethal force. It's time for the queen, the most powerful piece on the board. In chess, the queen is your weapon of mass destruction, or you know that friend you send in when things get real. The queen can go everywhere. The queen is undoubtedly the most powerful piece on the chessboard. She can move freely in any direction, making her a constant threat to the opponent's forces. And then we have the game's most valuable player without a doubt, the king. The king is the chess player's most valuable asset, but also the most vulnerable. He can only move 1 square in any direction and must always be protected by the other pieces. The king is the ultimate target. The ultimate goal in chess is to checkmate the opponent's king. When a king is in check and there is no possible move to remove the threat, the game is over. The rules. There are different ways the game can end. The most satisfying way to end a chess game? Checkmate, of course. In chess, checkmate happens when a player's king is under immediate attack in check. There is no legal move to remove the threat. This means the king cannot move to a safe square, capture the attacking piece, or block the attack. When this happens, the game is over and the player whose king is in checkmate loses. Resignation. A player can resign if they believe they cannot win the game. This is often done when a player is in a hopeless position. A stalemate or pat. In chess, a stalemate or pat happens when it's a player's turn to move, but they have no legal moves available and their king is not in check. This means the game ends in a draw, even if one player has a material advantage. Like this example. In this example, the queen and rook have blocked all the squares the king can move to. Since the king is not in check and has no other legal moves, it's a stalemate. The agreement to a draw. Both players can agree to a draw at any point in the game. Time forfeit. If a player runs out of time on their clock, they lose the game by time forfeit. And the 3 remaining ways to end a game are: threefold repetition, the 50-move rule, and insufficient material. If neither side has enough pieces to checkmate the other, the game is a draw. Every chess game kicks off with white taking the first shot. Then it's black's turn, and so it goes, until the game is danced to its final note. Be sure to subscribe and hit that like button. And then we have castling. It allows the king and rook to swap positions, putting the king in a safer spot. However, this special move can only be done if neither the king nor the rook has moved yet. Also, the king cannot be in check, and none of the squares between them can be under attack, like in this position. And that's all I can think of for now, folks. To conclude, I'd like to offer you a real topper. I'm about to show you one of the most epic checkmates ever executed by none other than the greatest player of all time. After me, of course, Magnus Carlsen.